Hello and welcome everybody to an awesome interview. I had a lengthy conversation with Cody Ellem from Australia. He's not just inspiring, but the way he sees things and the way he talks about things is inspiring because he does it in a very humble manner. At the same time, whatever he says is backed up by data, experience, or simply by his attitude of actually following through. And I've talked to many people, but Cody is something special. And this interview is pretty long, so take your time. Either watch it in small bites, or watch the entire thing while you're driving or when you're in the subway. It is worth it. It is so interesting to listen to how he approaches things. And the interesting thing is that he started to row at the age of 10, then went into the military, and came out of military, got his family started, now drives trucks all night, but he still works out. He does up to 7 training sessions a week, and he coaches. And it's not like, hey, I'm a coach, who can I coach? No, it's the other way around. The kids of his club approached him and say, hey, can you coach us? Because we see how you train. So Cody's quite something special. And originally, the main reason to talk to him was he was one of the early adopters of Randallfoils in Australia. And it was not like he just used them and say, it's okay, it's fast. He actually had data for everything. And I wanted to make an interview with him to find out who's that person? What is he like? Because the thing is, Ian Randall said this correctly. In rowing, we rowers tend to be so afraid to try something new because all we want to do is fit in. We don't want to do something new. We don't want to try something new. And what if it doesn't work? We get laughed at. So conformity in rowing is a bigger issue than in many other sports. In rowing, it's not cool to try something new and be effective. In rowing, it's cool to fit in and follow when everybody else is already adapted, which makes innovation a bit tricky. So I wanted to talk to Cody and find out what type of person is he, and how does he think? How is he wired? What are the things he does? And what I discovered was inspiring for me, very simply. It's a pretty long interview. It's worthwhile watching it, and I recommend you take your time. Don't skip forward, just take your time. And when I did the interview with Cody, my intention was to let him talk, because it's not about me, it's about him. And he doesn't just only talk about Randallfoils, he says he get 10% faster with Randallfoils. And I knew Kalashnikov in the UK initially said, well, 4 to 5, 6% faster. And that already in rowing terms, if you're familiar with rowing terms, that's a galaxy. It's not even a different world. But 10%, that's crazy. Ian and I are business partners in this. So we've invested a lot to make this possible. But 10% even surprised me. And the interesting thing is that Cody has data. And it's not like he tried it out by himself. And he also had his team row with that. And he did comparison, cross-comparison, and so on. But then he also talks about completely different things, like the rules. He set up 10 rules for his athletes and also for himself, how to enjoy rowing more and how to be more effective. And that alone is worth watching the video. So come with me for, I think, more than a 1 hour long, or just about an hour long interview done through Zoom, and enjoy the interview with Cody. Say it again. How many kids have you got in your club?
About 135 at the moment.
Where do they come from?
So we're in southeast Brisbane on the western side, in the western suburbs, and we're the only junior-specific club. So all the other clubs in southeast Queensland are general clubs. So they have adult rowers and masters and things like that, and elite rowers, where we're the only club that focuses primarily on juniors. So we get, we've got about 5 or 6 schools in our catchment that the kids will row for us. Not necessarily for their school, but for the club. Mm-hmm. And because we do tailor specifically for the kids, we get a lot more through, where the clubs the other clubs seem to they don't do learn to row programs and things. So they'll take a kid that can already row and then go and do their performance training and their upper end of training, rather than take them from where we'll take a year 6 kid, which is generally about 11 years old, 11 or 12 years old, and we'll develop them all the way through to university. So the way we do it is a little bit different to everyone else, but it works really well for us. So,
I find it fascinating that so many kids just show up and want to row.
It's a funny sport because it literally used to be a form of torture. Like it's a crazy sport that it's the most painful thing you'll ever do, but we all seem to love it. And you get these kids that are, I don't know, they're just a different type of kid, I think. They could all go and play football or basketball or anything they like, and they choose to come to rowing at 4:30 in the morning every day, train for an hour and a half for an 8-minute race. You know, like this kid's got something special. They've got some sort of special drive or motivation, and it's they're a different type of kid. I think there's a little bit of savageness in there. Yeah. But
that's the best definition I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's really weird. We all love this sport, and none of us can exactly put our finger on why. It's the worst thing to possibly do. It's the most painful. It's the most time-consuming sport that can come down to nanoseconds, and we all come back in the next day and go back to training. Yeah.
My East Coast Biro dealer, Rich DiGiovanna, he said it's not abuse if you like it.
Yes. I often describe it to the parents when we get new kids in. I say to them, you've got to understand this isn't a sport, it's an obsession. So be prepared to have an obsessed child. Yeah. And they'll come back 6 months later and they go, yeah, we know what you mean. They won't shut up and everything is rowing.
I went through your Instagram post, and by the way, I think everybody should follow your Instagram channel. I think it's super funny, and I follow you and I like your posts, and it's just enjoyable. You got a very cool view of things, and I saw a post where I think 10, 15 years ago you were in a military uniform, holding an MP and saying, then you were in the military, now you're teaching kids how to row.
Yeah.
What's that transition?
So I was rowing when I was a kid. So I started rowing at 10 and went right through to about 17. And then I hit the brick wall and basically burnt out. I was lost for a little while and joined the army, and spent 6.5 years in the army. I was started in the infantry and then went to transport. When I left the army, I started to get that little bit of a lost feeling again. And so I put the boat back on the water and went for a row. And I come home and I said to my wife, I've got to do this again. You know, I just got that drive. So I gave myself 6 months and I said, okay, I'm going to start competing again in 6 months' time. I had a look at the regatta calendar and I set the target. And then I was competing for about 12 months, and a couple of the kids asked me if I'd coach them. I'm going, oh, okay, I'll try. I'll see what I can do. And then
may I interrupt you for a second? Why did they ask you? Didn't they already have a coach?
They had coaches, but they weren't high-performance coaches, and they weren't performing at the level that I was. So I started rowing straight into open rowing again. I didn't really go through masters rowing or anything like that. I said, well, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it properly, and went straight to the top. And I think they seen that and sort of had that little bit of inspiration and thought, well, I wonder what he knows. So they're asking me questions and coming for a row with me and seeing what I do. And then they've basically between themselves decided, oh, we'd like to be coached by him. But transitioning from leading soldiers to leading kids is really different. And it's something I never thought I'd do. And considering my squad, I have 9 girls that are between the ages of 15 and 16. So going from a 14-man section in the infantry of battle-hardened men to teenage girls is mind-blowing. But it gives me the opportunity I can be the fun coach and know that I've got the strength to support them both emotionally and physically when I have to. And I think they they see that strength in their coach rather than maybe having a coach who's not, or maybe not competing, or they haven't had the personal skills or the what's the word I'm looking for, or the life experience that I have that they can then feed off. They sort of, I don't know, I think they see that strength there in their coach. And with my rowing as well, I'm definitely not the best rower, but I try to do the best I can every race I can. And as I say to the kids, it doesn't matter if you come 8th or 1st, as long as you do the best you possibly can at that time, but first feels a lot better. And at the end of every race that I row, I'll explain to them, this is what I've done that race. This is why it didn't work out well. I was just panicked that race. And I'm very open with them. And I find it's the same as when I was in the army. You're very open with everyone else in your section. So it's different language we use. Sort of you have to change things to suit a teenager, because sometimes there's definitely a language barrier, even though we're all speaking English. Apparently we're not. Teenagers have their own language. But if I sort of find that I can be very open with them and they can be very open with me, and I think they respect me more as a coach, and I get through to them a lot more through that experience with the army. It's kind of a strange combination, but it really works. And I don't know. I sort of make it work for what it is. Use the leadership training that I've developed in the army, and then sort of just adapted it. And the kids have loved it. They've run with it. So it seems to be working.
What's your army background? Did you actually go to combat? Do you have combat experience?
I deployed on peacekeeping trips, and plenty of deployments within Australia. So plenty of exercises and things like that. Never went to direct combat or anything. I was in a support role as a transport operator, and I transferred out of the infantry due to an injury. So I didn't get to deploy while I was in the infantry into direct combat. So, but
which may be the reason why I'm still here.
Possibly, yeah. It's one of those things. Sometimes I look back on it and go, I wonder what could have happened if I'd done an extra 2 years or 3 years or something like that. But at the time, I had a very young family, so my son had just been born, and it got to the point where I was away for nearly 11 months of the year, and it wasn't fair on the family. So it was time to get out of the army, change into becoming a civilian, and put some time back into the family. Yeah. And then rowing, it's sort of rowing and coaching. It's give me that outlet to focus all that skill that was sort of just sitting there doing nothing. I can now plan performance squad sessions and coach the kids and different drills and things like that. So next weekend we start performance training. So this year the kids are focusing on national championships, which will be February next year. So I've planned out now the next 28 weeks of how we're going to basically go from their foundation phase through their building phase right up to their competition at national championships to get them to their peak. And that leadership sort of work, it all comes flooding back when I'm sitting there writing out programs and going, okay, I need to work at 90% for this block of time, and this time I can go up to 93%. And it all sort of comes flooding back. And you're like, oh, okay, I remember this stuff. Yeah. You just got to make it teenager proof. Yeah. Instead of going for a 40-kilometre pack march, we go for a 5-kilometre run. Yeah.
How did you, and you came back into rowing, and the reason why I wanted to talk to you is because your personality and your mindset is different to many other rowers I know. No offense to other rowers, but there's an openness to innovation and new methods, different methods, and to things simply have to work that I don't see with many others. Where does it come from?
I I think I've always been like it. I'm a boat builder by trade. So I started building oars and boats back when I was 15. So I finished school in year 9. Probably not the best example for kids wanting to finish school now, but I finished school early, done my apprenticeship, and I was working on rowing sculls and oars. So I've had it for a long time. I'm just that sort of an inquisitive type of person. So for me, if there's something new comes on the market, I'm happy to try it, because we can't just go, okay, we've developed everything for 100 years, let's stop, we've hit the point, because I don't think we've done that. I think there's still room to develop further, in boats or blades, riggers. There's room somewhere to develop something, even if it's 1%. 1% over 2,000 metres could be a second. So in a sport like ours, anything is worth looking at. If it doesn't work, so be it. We go back to where we were. It's nothing gained, nothing lost. If it does work, we tell the world and they all laugh at us and go, why does that thing work? It's kind of just being inquisitive. That's how I come into Randallfoils. I was an early adapter, but I watched a little bit and I spoke to a lot of people that had them. There was, at the time, I think I was the 5th person to get them and try them.
When was that?
That would have been a few years ago. It was shortly after I started. And for me, it was like, I might be able to get 10 seconds out of these things. I'll have a look at them. And I figured I'd spent more on sunglasses and water bottles for free speed. I may as well spend the money on these for actual speed. So I looked at them, spoke to Ian. Ian's a lovely guy. When I bought them, he sent me a message saying, this is how you set them up and everything. And this was back when we were adjusting rigging and we're still working on different pitches and things like that. So I put them on, and it was a few weeks of just mucking around with them, getting them right. And a couple of friends said, well, we've been looking at them. Tell us what you think of them. So, okay. And that's when I started writing the posts about them and recording the data on them. And it was simply because I had a couple of friends ask, and I wanted to know that if this whichcraft that I was feeling in the boat was actually working, or if it was just that this is shiny new feeling, where it's whatever it is, I'd like to know that it is working for a reason. So for me, that's why I started recording all the data and having a look at it. And I adjusted my rigging back into where Ian suggested, and then started playing from there. My gearing is a little bit heavier than what I rode without them, and I'm getting between 10 and 12% increase in boat speed with
10
them.
and 12%.
Yeah.
And you
over
a numbers
1,000
guy.
meters. Yes. Yeah. So over 1,000 meters.
1,000 meters race pace.
Yes, at race pace.
10 to 12%.
I find my stroke rate, I can now stroke between 30 and 34 strokes a minute, and get around 2 or 3 meters a second more boat speed than I can without them. So without them, I'll have to rate a lot higher. And I think it's the way they lock into the water. So basically, I find with the foils, as soon as you touch the water, they are locked in to the point where you tap them out of the water. Without foils, I find a real rubbery feel on the oars for the first, it's about that far. You put your blade in, and what we used to call the engage, drive, breathe. There's no real engagement with the foils. So that first part of the stroke, it's locked straight away. Where without the foils, it's got an engagement where your blade sort of bounces up and down, settles, and then you drive. I think taking that bounce out of the catch is what does it. For me, I think that's really what does it.
Was that the whichcraft you were referring to earlier?
Yeah. So I when I felt them first, I done the same thing most people do. I started to try and fight them for the first, say, couple of Ks, and then I just let them do their thing. I stopped fighting them, and I'm like, oh, what is this feeling? It felt like I was swinging off 2 brick walls. Like, how is this working? And that's when I started to record the data of like why it's working. And that when you take it off, you definitely feel the rubberiness in your oar. And that's the whichcraft I refer to. It's either with the foils, you either lock in, or without them is this real rubbery feel at the catch. And for them to take that feel out, I'm like, this has to be whichcraft. Like, how is it working? What is doing this? So yeah, that's why I sort of started recording it. And then a couple other coaches in the club got a set and started to use them. And one of the coaches, Peter, he was quite funny. I said, "Do you want me to adjust your rigging?" He's like, "No, just put them on. We'll see what happens." So we just put them on and went with 4 degrees in the gate, same gearing. He's put them on. He's gone, "I love them. I don't know what they're doing, but I love them." And then he rode without them one day and he come back in. He goes, "I'm never rowing without these again." He goes, "The witchcraft works." I'm like, okay. Yeah.
What is the data that you recorded? Because, I mean, I still try to process 10 to 12%. This is, I mean, in rowing, this is a galaxy. This is beyond any discussion.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And you have actual data.
Yeah. So I use an app as my stroke coach called Rowing in Motion. Mm-hmm. And it gives me way too much information that I ever need. However, I started to look at it and go, maybe this is useful for me. So that was giving me boat speed over 1,000 meters, split times, drag factor, check data. It was giving me all this information, and all of a sudden it actually meant something to me, because normally I just look at the time, how fast I'm going and where I'm going. And with the foils, I'm going, okay, I wonder what this other stuff means. So I started comparing between the two, rowing without them and rowing with them. And I was noticing my boat speed with them was so much faster. My projected 1,000-meter times were so much faster. Splits were lower. And I said, okay, well, I'm going to record this data. So I started recording it pretty much every session. So if I was having 5 sessions a week, every session for 4 weeks I was recording it. And then I went back to rowing without them, said, okay, is it actually working? Started comparing data from before I got them, with them, after them. And there was a significant increase. And what I found, it was like every single stroke was perfect. I couldn't have a bad stroke. So you'd remember when cleaver oars come in over Macon blades, and everyone was saying that they just make a bad rower look good and they're cheating and all this. That was similar to what I was getting with these foils. It was like every stroke, perfect depth, perfect catch, perfect recovery every single time. And there was a couple of times I got off the water and I was thinking to myself, are these cheating? Like, should we be using these? Because it was profound. It was really wild. And now I've gone back out to a little bit more. So I used to row at 287 with 87 inboard. Now I'm 288 with 87 inboard. So a little bit longer on the outboard. I've got from when I first put them on, I was about 5% right up to about 10% now. So I'm getting I think I've hit terminal velocity with them per se. I think I've got the most out of them for my fitness and strength. But when I've done the trials with the kids, so I wanted to bring them into the club and say, okay, look, can we trial these with the kids and see what happens? I looked everywhere. There wasn't a lot of data on it. Wasn't a lot of coaches using them. Spoke to a couple of coaches that were, and they said, yeah, we love them. The bigger boys sort of muscle them. And we spoke a little bit about them. I said, right, I'm going to do a trial. So I grabbed 6 of the kids. I got a set of concept blades with them, set without them, set of croaker arrows with them, and a set without them. And I gave them 3 runs over 1,000 meters each with each oar. And we recorded all their data. It's very unscientific, but we recorded all their data. And we were getting about 20 to 30 seconds faster with some of the kids. On average, the boys got about a 9% increase in their times for 1,000 meters, and the girls got 10 to 13%. And I think what it was the boys were fighting the oars a lot, where the girls just said, oh, this is really cool. What do we do? And they worked with them, and I think that's why they got the better result with them. But the kids seem to – so these are all 15-year-old kids. So they're not elite rowers. With the foils, it made their stroke. It took out all the bad habits, just got taken away. So all of a sudden you've got a 14, 15-year-old kid that's rowing like an elite because of the foil, simply saying, okay, your catch is perfect, your drive is perfect, your recovery is perfect. Everything just cleaned up so much, and that's why they had such a profound result with them. And I didn't change their gearing. So I didn't tell them anything about the oars. I didn't change their gearing or anything. I just said, right, I jump in the boat and have a go. So all the gearing was the same. Everything was the same. And that's why it was such a massive jump. Instead of getting like the 5% increase and then change your gearing and a little bit more. It was like a 10% increase straight away.
Mm-hmm.
But then a really cool thing I found is when I started getting them to row without the foils again, their muscle memory took over, and their depth control was so much better, their drive was so much better, and it was like they were looking for the foil. So they started thinking about their stroke a lot more, which was really cool. And even as a tool for a coach, it was really good to have that idea to go, okay, if I have a kid with depth control problems, I can give them a set of foils for a week or so. And then when I take the foils away, their muscle memory will take over and they'll still have that depth perfect every time. So I thought that was really cool with them. So even as a tool for a coach and not for long-term use, there's a really good result there with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I'm one of those rowing nerds really, so I'll play with anything. I'm happy for the kids to use timber oars and all sorts of things to focus on different stuff. So if I've got an extra tool in my coaching bag, and so be it, I'll use it. Yeah, especially if it makes the kids faster and makes their times and everything better, makes their rowing better.
A question about rough water. How do you get along with foils, and how do the kids get along with foils in rough water?
I personally don't have a problem. I'm used to rowing in rough conditions. So the club I was at before, we used to row in really rough conditions. It was on the Clarence River in northern New South Wales, and we would get a swell there sometimes that would be a foot tall. So personally for me, I don't have a problem. I get my blades up fairly high off the water. I've seen others have slight issues. I think a lot of it is simply because people are too used to rowing on glassy water, and they then blame the foil. Personally, I don't have an issue with them. And the kids I don't think the kids think about it enough to have a problem with them. They just think, just put the blade in and pull on it. They're not actually thinking about, will this thing get stuck in this wave or will this thing get stuck in the wind? I don't think they think that far ahead. They just simply want to put the blade in and pull on it as hard as they can. So they kind of ignore the foils a bit. So they don't have nearly as much trouble in rough conditions as I've seen others do it. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of overthinking sometimes when you simply just have to pull on the oar.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Cody, if you coach so much right now, is there enough time left to do the training for yourself?
Not really. So in preparation for the national championships, for Masters Nationals, I took a term. So over here we have school terms. I took term 2 off coaching. Mm-hmm. While the kids were doing their school rowing, we weren't coaching, and the 4 of us focused on our own training to go to Adelaide for nationals. Mm-hmm. So I went up to 2 sessions a day, 6 days a week for my own training. So I was doing a row in the morning. I was doing 8 to 10 kilometres of good rowing every morning, and then a heavy weight session before work, and then work all night and do it again the next day. And I was having Saturdays off. So I had to take a term off coaching to focus on my own rowing for the national championships. But now I'm coaching again. I've dropped all my training back so I'm doing 3 sessions on the water a week and 1 weight session, and the kids are doing 6 sessions all up. So, yeah. Wow. For me, it's simply maintenance now until probably October. I'll start training. I'll throw in an extra training day for myself around October. That's when our season starts to kick in for the Masters again. So I've kind of come to the realisation I'm not young enough to row in opens anymore. So I'm going to focus on the Masters more now, and just row opens when it sort of suits. I saw an Instagram post where I think you had a 7:38 over 2K. Yes, yeah. With all the work you do and all the coaching, this is pretty fantastic. Yeah, it'd be interesting if I had a normal job and I didn't have to work at night to see if I could maintain like a normal, sort of more of an athlete's training schedule, and see what I could get back to. However, with the work I do, and trying to balance work and life and coaching, I'm pretty happy with where it is. Like, I try not to compare myself too much with other people. However, sometimes you have to. It's just the nature of we're humans. We compare with each other. But I think I'm at the top end most of my competitors. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. I've never had a race where I've got off the water and thought, one, I shouldn't be there, or two, I didn't work hard enough. Mm-hmm. Every race has been a race, but I've never been overly disappointed, or got off the water and said I just had no business being in that race. I've always had a feeling of accomplishment of some sort, even if it is rowing in opens and I've been beaten by 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds. I've still got off the water and said, for myself, I done the best I possibly could, and look how close I was to the elite rowers. I try to take everything in as a whole package and sum up what I can and can't do, and look at it realistically, more so. And realistically, I think I'm doing okay. Yeah.
Cody, I've had a couple interviews, and I've got to say, speaking with you is, in all seriousness, the most inspiring thing I've done in a long time. I don't mean to flatter you. It's just you're straightforward, open. Your attitude is awesome. I think you're just an awesome person to hang out with. Just getting that spirit. I truly admire that.
It's I look at it and go, well, if the kids see me doing it, that might inspire them. So if I've had a lot of injuries. When I was in the army, I broke my back, broke my collarbone twice, had broken legs, arms, knee recos, the whole works. And I basically say to them, if my old broken self can get out there and row 2,000 meters and be competitive, they can, So even if it's the smallest little bit of inspiration, I'll try and do what I can to get them on the water and loving it. That's my Instagram. It's sort of up and down. I'm very open on it. If I have a very bad day, there's been a couple of posts there where I've said, okay, this week's been a struggle mentally, and I've sort of explained it. I think it's important to be human. I'll never be the Instagram model where everything's all fake. My Instagram is very human, and I do it simply so the kids can see that I struggle as well. It's not like their coaches, this god of rowing, and he never has any ups and downs or anything like that, and he's completely perfect, because then they'll never aspire to be that. If they can see that I am human and I struggle as well with my own rowing and own life, they'll know that then it's normal for them to struggle at times as well. And explaining to the kids that it is hard. There is times where you really doubt yourself. And I think having my Instagram, some posts are funnier than others and things like that. I think if that gives them that slight little, outlook or something to look at and cheer them up just a bit to get them over that little bit of a mountain that they might be climbing, that's what I focus on. And it's, for me, I sort of just focus myself on the same. There's no point lying to myself. I'm never going to make it to the Olympics at 34 and with the injuries I've got, but I might be able to coach some of these kids to get to the Olympics. And if I do that by being a little bit, self-deprecating and a bit funny, all the better. But I think being open is very important, especially as a coach. The kids need to feel comfortable enough with me to come to me if they have a problem or they are struggling. And if I am basically a rock, they can't do that. Where if I let them in a little bit, and I know they'll feel more comfortable doing that. So it's mainly for the kids, to be honest with you. And it sounds really, I don't know, it might sound cliche, but coaching those kids is far more rewarding than my own rowing. It really is. Winning national medals and state medals, things like that, it all feels great, and it's awesome. I had an amazing time in Adelaide with Alistair. We'd never met each other. We'd been talking for years. We got there, we met Friday, we rowed Saturday, and we won a medal at our national championships. And that's one of the amazing things about rowing. It's you meet all these amazing people. You go, okay, let's get in a boat and just see what happens. And it was great. We won a medal. That felt absolutely awesome. It was an amazing week. But to see the kids go to state champs, work so hard for 26 weeks, row their quad and win first, second, and third in their quads, the emotion that rushes over them and the pride that I have for them, it's far more rewarding.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's important to be the person I am for them. And that's the reward at the end of the day. We're all volunteer coaches too. We don't get paid for it. But the reward is definitely seeing the smiles and the emotion from them and feeling that sense of pride to know that you've helped guide these little humans in their path through life.
I want to thank you very much for that interview and for taking the time before you have a long trekking session ahead.
No problem. Just before you go, did you watch the Swiss sculler the other day in a swift boat rowing Macon oars?
It was your post.
Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah. When I saw your post, I tried to contact her, but I couldn't find any contact information.
Yeah, I couldn't either. She's only 17 though, so I thought maybe that's because she is so young. But her technique was absolutely beautiful. It was so long and emphasized. And I was watching it, and it was really good to actually show the kids the comparison between her and I think it was an Italian girl that came first. The difference in stroke rate and technique was like chalk and cheese. And seeing how cleanly she tapped the blade out of the water, and then she squared up early and just sort of dropped it in and then let the boat do all the work. It was absolutely beautiful sculling. Yeah. And for her to be 17 and have that maturity to use a blade that I don't think we've seen at a world level since maybe the 90s.
I can't remember.
Yeah. And to use it so well, and then to use a boat that in Australia, that'd be $7,500 compared to a $20,000 Felipe or an Empaca.
Mm-hmm.
It's for her to do that on the world stage is phenomenal. And I'm really excited to see how her career goes.
Yeah.
And it was a beautiful race to watch.
At the age of 17 to compete at the under 23s.
Yes. Yeah.
Just you know what it's like to be at these international events, and everybody's like, okay, you think they've got it all figured out, but then you find out everybody is a bit of chicken.
Everyone's panicking. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
The good thing is that your post made me reach out again to World Rowing. And I was in contact with Andrew Cooper, who's marketing director, and he actually agreed that I can do video analysis with the YouTube footage.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And I really want to do this because that rowing is outstanding.
Oh, it was beautiful. It was classy rowing. And it was, if you understand what I mean, it was really classy rowing, where a lot of rowing now, it looks either panicked or it's muscled or it's rushed. That was really classy, just nice and gently in the water, lever the blade through the water and just tap your blade perfectly out. It was absolutely beautiful rowing. And I seen it, and it was a real pleasure to watch that race. You know, I watch a lot of rowing. So every time there's a World Cup or anything, I'll watch the entire regatta. I love it. I watch rowing like people watch football or cricket. I'm a real rowing nerd. And when I seen that, I'm like, wow, this is interesting. Yeah. But
I talked to Ian Randall, and I asked Ian, what do you make of this? And Ian said, well, the best thing of all, besides her technique, is she shows that you can do things differently.
Exactly. Yes. Yep. So I think in my post, I said her coach must be either a lunatic or a genius, maybe both.
Right.
Yeah. At a world championship, for a coach to say, oh, yeah, we're going to give you a set of 90s blades, and a boat that we found down in the clubhouse that our kids train in, and we'll just send you out there. Either he's got, I don't know, he's got a glass ball, a crystal ball in front of him that says this is going to work perfectly, or he's sitting there and he's gone, she's comfortable, we'll see how we go. But her interview afterwards, they asked her why she used those blades, and she goes, I just like them better. Like, yep, that pretty much sums up the witchcraft of rowing. I just like them better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. But it was interesting to see. So her stroke rate, I think she topped out at 28 strokes a minute. And the young girl that won, she topped out about 36 strokes a minute with cleavers and a much shorter outboard. So when you look at the length of her oars, it's very, very different. And it sort of made me wonder, is the shorter blades, is the shorter technique, is it actually more efficient, or should we start looking at that 90s technique again and maybe go back and rethink where we've come over the last 10, 15 years? it sort of makes you rethink about, okay, what changes have we made to technique that we have thought may be more efficient, but actually they might not be. It makes you really think about it. And as a coach, you sort of start, like I've had a few ideas where I'm going to get the girls to use some timber oars. I want them to work on their tapping down and their squaring up for the catch. So I've lined up some timber oars. It's very hard to find timber oars that are still usable, but I've managed to find a few. So for me as a coach, I'm like, okay, I'm going to start exploring these older methods again and see where the efficiencies were then compared to now, and see what we can, see what actually does work best. Yeah, but for her to do that on a world stage was phenomenal. It was excellent, absolutely excellent. Yeah.
I would desperately love to interview her and her coach. I put you and her coach about in the same place. It's Ian Randall put it right, and he said he's doing his thesis right now, and he said rowers are the most adapted people in the world in terms of they want to fit in.
Yes. Yep.
They don't want to be different, and everybody else wants to be different with style and wearing this cap this way, and so I don't know. Rowers want to confirm the norm as much as possible, because what if I try something new and it doesn't work? And I see this in coaching a lot when I write these programs, and we've got this high intensity training. And high intensity means after 30 seconds you shouldn't have a single clue how to take the next stroke, and you still try. So it's designed to make you fail.
Yes.
And people are scared. People can't do that, because what if I give it all, then it's not enough? And that fear is omnipresent, and it prevents us from further advancement. Yeah.
I have 10 rules I tell my kids, and they're my 10 tips for young players. And rule number 2 is have confidence in your ability. And you may not be the fastest on the water. You may not be the most technically sound, but have confidence in your ability, because you wouldn't be in that race, in that boat, in that seat, at that regatta if your coach didn't believe you could do it. And I think a lot of rowers forget that just have confidence in themselves. And there's a lot of times where you sit there and you doubt yourself and things like that. But it's so important to have that confidence and go, right, I do this every morning or every afternoon over and over again. I'm training at a faster pace than what I normally race at. I can do this. And sometimes when you're in a race, it's the nerves and things all blow out, and you start to think, okay, oh no, they're doing that, maybe I should do that, and you start to doubt yourself. You need to just really have confidence in yourself, have confidence in your own ability, and try and have that peace of mind to go, okay, rely on the training that I've done, not what everyone else has done.
Would you mind to tell us the other 10 or the other 9 rules, just briefly?
Just got to bring them up on the phone. So I wrote these out. So young kid I was rowing with, she had a little bit of problem with anxiety and things, and I said, okay, I'm going to do what I can for her just to calm her down and sort of level her out a little bit emotionally. So I wrote these 10 tips out for young players, and I wrote them. I still find myself going back to them, to be honest with you, and reading them occasionally, and it settles me down. So number 1 is never forget the fundamentals. Put the blade in, pull, get the blade out. That's all it takes. Try not to overcomplicate it, and work on your foundations before you worry about all the little things that add on. Number 2 is have confidence in your ability. Success requires belief. If you don't believe you can win, then you never will. If you're at a regatta, in a race, or in a boat, your coach knows you're good enough. Believe in yourself and be proud of yourself. Number 3 is there isn't any shortcuts. Rowing is a sport, unlike most, that 99% of the result is down to the work that you put in on a daily basis. During those sessions, when you're tired and cold and lacking motivation, ask yourself if your competitors will be up this early training this hard. If the answer is no, then you're doing something right. 4 is it can be unpleasant. Suck it up, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I don't need a stroke coach to tell me I'm doing it pretty hard, and I don't need to know whether I'm doing 300 watts or 310 watts. It hurts all the same. Number 5 is never lose sight of the bigger picture. It's easy to get caught up in the day-to-day monotony of training. When the season seems too far away, you're not seeing improvements, just think back 6 months and see how far you've come, and look forward 6 months and remind yourself of the goal and why you do it. Number 6 is focus on the small things. Anyone can get up at 5 a.m. and do 15 Ks before school or work. Anyone can stay up and do another 15 Ks while everyone else is going to parties. But it's the little things, nutrition, stretching, recovery, which will make the difference. You have 240 strokes in a race. If you can make each stroke 0.5% better, you'll come out on top. Number 7 is control the controllables. If you don't know how fast your teammates will be, or in a seat race, you don't know how the other crews are planned for a race, the only thing you can control is how fast you go and how deep you're willing to push yourself. So don't stress about what others are doing. Number 8 is appreciate how fortunate you are. Take the time to take in your surroundings occasionally. The fact that you get to see stunning sunrises every morning, the fact you're able to spend time doing something worthwhile with your best friends. Be thankful for everyone around you, your family, your friends, your coach. Number 9, and this one I say to the kids all the time, don't half-ass it. If you don't really love it, the competition is too fierce and the standard is too high, the demands are too tough. Once it becomes a chore, it's over. Have fun, do it with passion, but if it feels like a chore at 17, take a break and reset your goals. And taking a break, even if it's a week, that week might be enough just to reset everything, reset the focus. And for kids, it's so important. That week might change their entire outlook on the sport. They come back in a week's time and go, yes, I want it harder. And it's completely recentered them mentally. So just that little break might help. And number 10, and this one, I never stop this one. Never stop learning. Soak up every drop of knowledge you can. Okay, ask questions. Ask your coach while you're doing a drill. Ask your friends what they had for breakfast. Ask senior rowers what they did to get at nationals or state, in the top boat, whatever it is. Google is your friend. Read blogs, listen to podcasts, watch the best in the world and learn from what they do. So for me, I'll watch your videos. I'll watch World Rowing and I'll break down their techniques. I'll look at what different rowers are doing. I never stop learning. And I listen to podcasts a lot too, and not necessarily rowing podcasts. So I'll listen to podcasts about MMA and listen to how they train and go, okay, well, these guys are training for an explosive sport that's this long. What can they do that I can then train for, say, the first 250 metres of this race? Or I'll listen to ultra marathon runners. Their training for an ultra marathon is really similar to our training for a 2K race. Sounds strange. They're doing 250 kilometres. We're doing 2.5. But their training is very similar on how they structure their build-up, their deload weeks, things like that. So it might not be rowing related, but you might still get something out of it. So you never stop learning. And the kids, I'll remind the kids of them every now and again, and we'll just go through and recenter and, okay, training's getting harder, so let's recenter, let's focus on what we're doing. And I think they really do help. For 10 little tips, it's not time-consuming to look back on them, but they might be just that little push you need to go, hey, okay, cool, I am improving. Let's keep going. Yeah.
Awesome. Cody, this is going to inspire a lot of people. And you should put these tips out or these rules out written on your Instagram.
Yeah, I've been doing unmotivational coaches quotes lately.
Yeah, I saw that. Funny.
Yeah, funny things I say to the kids all the time, like stop wobbling around like a pool noodle.
Yeah.
You're killing fish, things like that. So every now and again, I'll throw an actual motivational one in there. So I've done one the other day. Comparison is the killer of joy. And I put down rule number 2, have confidence in your own ability. So I think weekly I might look at making each one of these like a motivational thing each week. Just for the content, it sort of gives it in smaller chunks too. So the kids will all take in that one little thing. Okay, we're going to focus on this little thing this week. And they're not just the kids I coach. I've got kids that someone must have mentioned me in Portugal once, because I got about 15 followers from Spain and Portugal all at once. So I must have been mentioned somewhere for something. It was sort of like this influx of all these kids from this one club. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's strange. And again, in England, I got a bunch of kids from England started following me all at once. There must have been something on a podcast or somewhere where I've been mentioned. So I thought that was quite funny. I'm like, yeah, just this random volunteer coach in Queensland's got these people from all around the world follows me for, I don't know, some of the stupidity that I post.
No, Cody,
Yeah.
I don't think, I of course, everybody has to downplay, but I don't think what you do is random.
Mm.
This is high quality in a lot of different in a lot of different ways. The intrinsic motivation you create, the way you approach technique and rowing, your innovative aspect to many ways. Not just Randallfoils or Macon blades or anything else. It's just try new things, get data, try things out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Thank you. I try not to be. I try not to be too serious with it. Some things I do think about. There was a post there a little while ago. I spoke about mental health and things like that. Stuff like that, I really try to be really focused on it. But a lot of it's just fun. Yeah, we're at regattas, we're doing this, we're doing that, or or I post my training. So what I do at training, to prove that I am human. Yeah. And also if I don't get the kids that I coach to do anything that I wouldn't personally do. So if I post my training, they know that, oh yes, he does it as well. So I try not to make it serious. I genuinely don't sit there and plan content or anything like that. It's generally I'm bored or I'm at training or I'm at work and go, okay, I'll post this, or I'll do this little video of the kids that was really good rowing or something like that. There's a video I was working on the other night. I got distracted, and it was a new drill I had the kids doing where I had the stroke, pull her blades in and not use her blades at all, and still use the same technique. So she had to really focus on breaking down the technique into pieces rather than just relying on the blade to pull her through the stroke. And then what happens is the other three people in the quad have to really focus on her body cues for their timing rather than just looking at the collars on the shafts. I was going to put up a funny video about that one too and explain why I'd done that particular drill, because at the time I think the girls thought I was crazy, but there is a reason for the drill, and I find it's a really good drill. It makes them really focus on breaking their technique down rather than just relying on the oar to take them through.
Thank you very much for taking the time.
Oh, thank you for offering. It's not every day you get to speak to one of the most important people in rowing.
Oh, no. I don't see myself like that at all. No.
Oh, you should. You should. You're the Joe Rogan of rowing.
Sum it up. I hope you liked the video. I hope it was interesting for you. And I recommend you do follow Cody. It's just fun. And he does have a good eye for interesting stories, just like he picked up on a Swiss girl. And by the way, I'm trying to do a video analysis on that women's single race in Rochester. And if you happen to be in contact with her, maybe you can connect her and myself so that I get to talk to her coach. It's just great to see that people try new things and it works. Alrighty, that's it for today. Thank you very much for spending the time, watching the entire interview. I appreciate that. I hope it was worth your time. If it was, give me a thumbs up, like the video, share, subscribe, all the good things in the world, and all back to you. All right, have a good day. Looking forward to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.